In that moment, my right arm went totally paralyzed by my side. Then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm having a stroke. I'm having a stroke. And then the next thing my brain says to me is, wow, this is so cool. This is so cool. How many brain scientists have the opportunity to study their own brain from the inside out?
Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor knows a lot about the human brain, and she knows it from firsthand experience. That's a clip from Dr. Bolte Taylor's 2008 TED Talk in which she described her own stroke and the profound impact it had on her understanding of the human brain and of life itself. Now she's expanding on that understanding in a new book, Whole Brain Living, The Anatomy of Choice and the 4 characters that drive our life. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor earned her Ph.D. in Life Sciences at Indiana State University, trained at Harvard in both the departments of neuroscience and psychiatry, and in 1996, at the age of 37, she suffered a life-altering stroke. It's an experience she credits with broadening her understanding of how the brain works, how we make choices, and how we perceive the world around us. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor to Frank Buckley Interviews. Doctor, thank you for joining us from your houseboat in that beautiful cove on a lake in Albany, Kentucky.
Thank you, Frank. It's good to be with you. Even though it's raining here, I hear you some rain.
Well, it looks beautiful where you are. I want to start with that day in 1996 when you suffered your stroke. Can you describe what it felt like and what you were thinking? We kind of got a taste of it there during your TED Talk, but what were you thinking as it was happening?
Well, in the beginning, of course, I'm a neuroanatomist, so I study the anatomy of the brain. I'm not a neurologist who treats people with stroke. So I'm not really familiar with stroke survivors, but through, I had book understanding and I knew the warning signs of stroke. But I woke up one morning and I had a major hemorrhage in the left half of my brain. I experienced a major headache. And then over the course of the next 4 hours, I watched my brain through the eyes of a scientist who thinks in terms of which cells communicate with which cells in order to give us each ability. I watched my brain go offline circuit by circuit by circuit. So I couldn't hear clearly, I couldn't see clearly, I had no language. Eventually my right arm went paralyzed, and it was a dramatic experience and an amazing experience through the eyes of a scientist.
Yeah, and let's get into that. You mentioned the circuits, and we'll get into the circuitry in a moment, but I want to talk about the sort of the anatomy of the brain. This thing that we all have inside our skull is so complex and fascinating. We've all heard about the 2 halves of the brain. Talk to us about that and how they interact.
So we have been taught, and I have a model that I have brought for you, and this model would fit in my head like this. And the brain is divided into 2 hemispheres that divide into a right hemisphere and a left hemisphere. And the right hemisphere is processing information in the present moment. So it's bringing information in through the external world and saying, in this moment, what am I feeling? What is my experience? And then what is my cognition? But at the same time, Frank, the right hemisphere does not have a perception of me as an individual. So at this level of processing, it sounds bizarre, but we are atoms and molecules. And the only reason why we know where we begin and where we end, the only reason I know that this face is my face and these glasses are not my face, is because we have cells in that left hemisphere that define the boundaries of my body as an individual. So once these come online, I become an individual, and then I have language, and all the information coming in through my sensory systems in the left hemisphere gets processed as me, the individual. So here I am in my left brain, the individual. Here I am, the right brain, literally as big as the universe, having intuition and wisdom, bringing in the bigger context picture of how do I, my left brain, fit inside the bigger picture of all that is. And on the morning of my hemorrhage, I lost my individuality. But what I gained was an experience of literally being as big as the universe.
Oh, my goodness. That's a lot. Okay, let's talk about the two hemispheres and how they, I don't know how to put it, but communicate with each other, or you talk about 4 characters. Talk to us about that.
When we think about, we've been trained to believe that the right hemisphere is our emotional brain, and our left hemisphere is our rational thinking brain. And instead of that, our emotional system is evenly divided between the two hemispheres. So I have emotion in my right hemisphere here, I have emotion in my left hemisphere here, and I have thinking in each of my hemispheres. And these are groups, modules of cells that actually result in a skill set and in a character profile. So the better we understand who is the thinking tissue, what is that character in my left hemisphere? What is the emotion of my left hemisphere? Because the left hemisphere has a past and a future. So that's going to be my thinking and remembrance of the past and my thinking of projection into the future. And then my emotions of the past, where my right hemisphere will be the emotions of the right here, right now moment, and the thinking of the bigger picture experience in how I relate to that.
And why do you refer to it as 4 characters?
Because if, say, for example, the left thinking portion of our brain is our rational tissue that allows us to communicate with the external world. It's the part of my brain that defines the boundaries of where I begin and end. It has language. It likes to create order in the external world, and it likes to control everything, people, places, and things. So it's the part of our brain that got us here on time today to talk to one another. That's a character. That's a personality. That person knows to put on my glasses, put on my earrings, and sit down where I'm supposed to sit at the right time. So we know what that character feels like inside of our body. When we get to know each of these 4 characters inside of us, then that conversation, ongoing conversation in our brain at any moment, suddenly begins to make sense, because I realize my character 1 rational brain is saying, Jill, you need to be at this place at 1 o'clock. And my character 3, which is just in the right here, right now, big as the universe, is out making a mess or probably swimming in the lake. So literally my own character 1 will say to my character 3, you need to get in and bathe.
And in terms of character 1 speaking to character 2, is that the circuitry that you mentioned?
Well, these are 4 groups of cells, and they're all inside of each one of us. We all have a character 1 rational brain. We all have emotional pain from the past. We know when that gets triggered. Our emotional reactivity happens in our character 2 emotional tissue of our left brain. So, for example, and this group of tissue is bringing information in about the present moment and comparing it and look to anything I've experienced in my past. And it is looking for a reason to push away and say, no, I don't like that. That doesn't feel safe. And so this is the portion of our brain that will react negatively if you look different from me, if you speak a different language from me, if you treat me differently than I'm used to be treated. This is tissue that is non-compliant with being open and kind with everyone.
A big part of your book is about regaining control over our thought processes.
Yes.
How do you explain that method of regulating your emotions when it may seem like your emotions are spiraling out of control?
So when we stop and we think that the brain is made up of cells, billions of beautiful little cells, and cells communicate with one another in circuits. And when my emotional circuitry gets triggered, then my anger is a cellular circuit. My anxiety is a cellular circuit. My fear is a cellular circuit. From the moment I think a thought, that's a cellular circuit. So let's say I think snake. We see a snake out back, and I don't like snakes because they scare me. So I think a thought, snake, there's a snake. I trigger my emotional circuitry of snake, and then I run a physiological response to, oh my gosh, noradrenaline floods through my body, flushes out of me in less than 90 seconds. And this is called the 90-second rule or the 90-second reset. Now, I can certainly stay afraid or angry for a whole lot longer than 90 seconds, but what I'm doing is I am re-stimulating a thinking loop that is re-stimulating an emotional circuit that is rerunning a physiological response through my body until it flushes out of me. So just knowing that we are this massive, beautiful cells, but every ability we have, Frank, every ability is because we have cells performing that function. And when we better understand how this beautiful organ is put together, then it's more like, well, there is kind of a roadmap to how do we take care of this thing and how do we get it to perform so that we get to live our best life.
Fascinating. We're going to continue the conversation, and we're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, I'm going to ask Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor about how our brains are wired for racism. And welcome back to Frank Buckley Interviews. We're here with Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, author of the new book, Whole Brain Living, The Anatomy of Choice and the Four Characters That Drive Our Life. I wanted to ask you about this idea of racism, and you have said that essentially our brains are somehow wired for racism. What do you mean by that?
Well, every ability we have, whether we are expressing anger or anxiety or fear or love or enjoyment or belly laughter or racism, these are cells inside of our brain that are saying, I don't like that which is different from me. So we are actually wired in our left brain to compare information about the present moment, compare it to the past, and say, does this feel familiar? And our left brain likes what is familiar. So as soon as someone comes into our space that feels different, sounds different, looks different, then we are inclined to push that away. But at the same time, we are wired for kindness in the right hemisphere, just as we're wired for racism or to push away from that which is different in the left hemisphere. So we can learn differently. We have the power to choose which of these circuits we actually want to engage in.
And to that end, when it comes specifically to racism, and as you know, Asian Americans have suffered a wave of hate and crimes, an increase in those things. Are there things that we can do with regard to the brain that would help to protect people?
Well, I think that if I'm behaving in a racist way, I have to take responsibility for making the decision that I'm not going to run on automatic. So just even learning that I'm having a fear response, and the reason why I'm behaving the way that I am is because I'm caught in my fear circuitry. And a lot of people are not willing to accept responsibility for their own emotions. And this is one reason why, to me, whole brain living is so important, because it helps us realize we have so much more power over what's going on inside of this beautiful brain, as opposed to simply running on automatic.
One of the things I found fascinating is how a brain of a baby boomer, you say, is different from the brain of a millennial. And maybe that's one of the reasons why we don't always communicate on the same level. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. Before we had technology, the boomer population would learn reading, writing, and arithmetic and all those things that we do in that left brain through normal left brain teaching skills, which are very different than through modern technology. A simple example is if you're going to teach a boomer we're going to learn the multiplication tables, right? What's 12 times 12? We memorize that. That all becomes rote memory. But if you're going to teach 2 times 3, you're going to automatically know that's 6 if you're a boomer. But the millennials learn through computer systems. So 2 times 3, we saw 3 chickens and 3 cows, and that equaled 6 animals, which is a right brain way of learning. So boomers are more left brain in how we've learned and been dominant. And that puts the value on me, the individual, because of that group of cells that I mentioned earlier that defines me. But the right brain doesn't have that definition of me, the individual. So the millennials learn left brain skills through right brain tools, and they actually become more right brain. And they like to be in groups, and they make decisions in groups. It's a completely different way of processing information, learning, and then the output is very different. So millennials and boomers at the level of our brain are very different.
Well, and to that point, you talk about the collective, that our brains are not just individual, that there is some collective sort of working going on there. Talk to us about that.
Well, when the right brain looks at the world, because it doesn't have the identity of me, the individual, it cares about who we are as humanity. Our right brain perceives ourselves as brothers and sisters on this planet. We care about our symbiotic relationship with one another. We care about the nurturing and the loving and the supporting of one another because it doesn't focus on me, the individual. And then the left hemisphere comes online and it says, no, it's about me and mine. And me and mine are different from you and yours.
Wow. Talk to me about social media and technology. We've discussed that on this program before. People have come on and said how dangerous it is, especially for younger people. Do you have a thought on that?
I absolutely do, because, social, and this is going to be a split again between the boomers. Boomers tend to use something like Facebook as a way of keeping up with our friends who we haven't seen in 20 years, but we want to know what's going on in their lives. And so we post things and they post things and we stay up. But to the millennials, this has become the social norm. This is how I present me and my life to the world. And I get fed now by the number of clicks and the number of likes and who's in my network or who has rejected me, who is not paying attention to me. And it has become, it's a completely different animal between these two ways of perceiving in the world. So in Twitter, I will say this, Frank, I always believe that Twitter are those thoughts that pass through our brain that should never come out of our mouths.
And is there a specific danger to especially young people in terms of the development of their brain when it comes to social media and technology?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of danger, but I think it's a matter of how do we find our value and how do we find our meaning? And if my value as a human being is established or determined by the number of people or the kinds of people in the external world who click on me and say, yes, she's cool, yeah, I like that, yeah, then that's very different than a population that actually realizes I have an internal world that I can reflect inside of. And that's where I can gain my purpose and my meaning, and then I can do and be a character in the external world. But I can be whole-brained in how I perceive that. So I'm not going to say that it is blatantly dangerous because there are some very good benefits, but it will be different.
All right, we're going to take one more break. When we get back with Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, I want to ask her about the brain and addiction. And we're back with Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, author of Whole Brain Living, The Anatomy of Choice and the 4 Characters that Drive Our Life. Dr. Bolte Taylor, when it comes to addiction and the structure of the brain, what do we need to know about how addiction is affected by the structure of our brain?
So every ability we have is because we have cells that perform that function. So if you look at the brain, you take it apart, you look inside the left hemisphere, and then you look deep inside, there's a group of cells in there that do craving. And so when we have a craving for an addiction, it's because we actually have cells that are craving something and fueling that addiction. So it is physiological, it is anatomical, and if we do go into some kind of recovery, the character of our character 2, our pain from our past, our emotion of the past, that character needs to be the one that goes into rehab, or we will probably relapse.
And so it can't just be a physical stopping of something. There has to be a deeper dive, literally, into the brain.
Some people can do a stop and ignore the craving. And that's one way of going cold turkey and stopping smoking or stopping something. But otherwise, having support and recognizing that these are physiological cellular problems, to me, that helps to be able to focus on which part of the brain is having the addiction, and then how might I use therapies in order to get out of it.
Once again, just a fascinating book and a wonderful conversation. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, thank you so much. The book is Whole Brain Living, The Anatomy of Choice, and the 4 Characters that Drive Our Life. Enjoy that day on the boat on the lake there in Kentucky.
Thank you, Frank.
All right. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.